Welcome to the College Admissions Process Podcast presented by Prep Expert. Prep Expert offers live online SAT and ACT courses with the best score guarantees, instructors, and curriculum. Go to prepexpert.com to guarantee your child's success. Welcome to The Cap, where we are here to speak with college reps and other professionals in the field of college admissions to help answer all your questions and guide you through every step of the process. So if you're serious about college admissions, you've come to the right place. Are you ready? Let's talk about it. And now, here's your host, Dr. John Durante. Welcome to The Cap, the College Admissions Process Podcast. I am your host, John Durante, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you today Kirk Brennan, who's the Associate Dean and Director of Undergraduate Admissions at the University of Southern California, also known, of course, as USC. Kirk, it's such a pleasure to have you here. I met you about 2 years ago, and it's so great that you're finally on the podcast. Thank you so much, and how are you?
Doing great. Thank you. Persistence pays, John. I really appreciate you staying on top of me to get you on the calendar. I really appreciate it. And doing great today. It's a beautiful day. Everyone's really excited.
Well, terrific. Well, I'm really excited because there was so many people that have reached out saying, "Hey, could you get USC on?" And I kept saying, "Well, I'm trying," and here we are. So, again, I'm really excited about this, and thank you for the persistence of all the listeners that continued emailing me. And we finally have the associate dean and, of course, the director of undergraduate admission, Kirk Brennan. So, let me start by just saying, USC is renowned for its diverse academic offerings. Can you highlight some of the unique programs or interdisciplinary opportunities that set USC apart from other colleges and universities?
Boy, it is hard to pick a highlight. Of course, many things come to mind, and I marvel all the time. Every day I walk across campus at the breadth of exciting things, the breadth of opportunity, the array of choices that students have. And I feel like every day, John, I learn of some new path that a student has charted for themselves that just sounds so exciting. So I think that students will be attracted to the opportunities that are available in so many different directions. Everybody takes their own different path here. A couple ideas come to mind, though. Well, we have a fairly new school called the Iveen and Young Academy. This is the program that was started by Jimmy Iovine, the founder of Interscope Records, and Dr. Andre Young.
Hmm.
They created a program that is, I still think, one of a kind. It's called the Iovine and Young Academy for Arts, Technology, and the Business of Innovation. And I think they chose to bring it here because we have great things happening in these different areas to kind of mash up and bring forth graduates who are able to form, to become a part of a cohort and think about the way new ideas cross boundaries, just disrupting and combining things that in the past we've had to deal with in silos, and we think that the new leaders will be able to think across divisions, and we're watching how this unfolds, and the kids are doing great things over there. I like the philosophy, politics, and law major as I think of things that I might have done, have I started over. Just the ability to combine the brains in the law school right next door to where I'm sitting right now, and the College of Letters, Arts, and Sciences across campus to think about reasons for being and how we govern ourselves as society. It's um, big questions like that intrigue me. But overall, I really think of a student that I saw present a couple of years ago. She presented her Renaissance Scholar capstone project. This is a program that we present to students that encourages the combining of disparate fields. And we actually offer a scholarship to students who do this in a compelling way. And her major was East Asian languages, and she had a minor in photography and also a minor in urban planning. And her capstone presentation showed how, over time, in parts of rural China, urban planning affected the developments of the community. And she showed pictures of how these cultural efforts grew and changed, and it was compelling. And the room was knocked over, and she won the scholarship. So she's going to take this
Wow.
money off to graduate school very soon. And just to hear the reaction from the professor and how she was able to combine efforts in three different schools here in one undergraduate program, still remarkable to me.
Well, that's terrific. And, you talk about not wanting people to be in their silos and you encourage those interdisciplinary opportunities, politics and law, one example of so many. So we really appreciate that as it's so important because you're right. I remember when I went into college, you kind of majored in something and you kind of stayed in that lane. But now, we know the importance of perhaps not only being an engineer, but understanding the business behind it, or perhaps going into medicine. But again, understanding the business behind it, the politics behind it. So those interdisciplinary opportunities are so important. And of course, USC, Kirk, as you know, because you live there, is located in the heart of LA. And I had the great honor about 2 years ago of being on that beautiful campus, which was truly a great opportunity for me. I had so much fun. But I was wondering, how does being in such a vibrant city influence student life and the overall college experience, such as internships, research opportunities, or anything else that you wish to share?
Oh, thanks for asking that one, John. You've touched upon two, I think, real important elements about USC that set us apart that I think your students will find attractive or your listeners will find attractive. And I will warn you in advance. I start talking about tacos when I talk about Los Angeles more than so many things. I think some of the best food in the world is found on a street here in town. The trucks and the small stands are bringing
Hmm.
food from all over the world at low prices, and I'm standing there in my jacket and tie in the middle of the cold, waiting for tacos coming out of a truck, and I can't get enough of them. But besides that, um, you can imagine being in such a big city, how and right in the center of it, how opportunities just spill into campus life and student experience in so many different ways. And I take the train to campus for one. The train has three stops. The metro has three stops adjacent to campus, so students can get all throughout the Los Angeles basin very easily and very cheaply, and see lots of different parts of town that you might not otherwise get to. And when I get off of that train, I sometimes see dozens and dozens of tables and umbrellas set up because we often have job fairs or student life fairs or career. This particular one that comes to mind was a career fair, and there are companies from all over the region just driving a few miles to campus to recruit students for internships and job opportunities. And they're the big companies that you would recognize. And those companies actually argue amongst themselves, I guess, or compete to be listed in our brochure. They want their logos in our brochures because they know that we're going to bring great talent here, and they want access to that great talent.
Hmm.
You could so there are lots of internship opportunities and just career opportunities in all kinds of fields: general commerce, government, politics, sports and entertainment, taco trucks. We're all right here. And I see students talking about their experience as well. They'll go see shows, they'll write about um, their experiences, and I read the student paper, and the student journalists will write about their experiences. They'll also talk about experiences of what's happening in the local neighborhood that don't always make the national or even Los Angeles Times news coverage. So the student journalists are out there doing local reporting right in our backyard in important ways. Those examples come to mind. And both of these two ideas that you've touched upon, interdisciplinary learning and being located in a city, I think are important things for students to think about generally for preparing for the future. The world is changing so fast, the pathways are not clear anymore. When I was a kid, the paths were pretty obvious. You had a couple of choices. You stayed in town. You either worked at the plant or you went to college and then maybe tried to manage the plant
Hmm.
and or another business nearby. And you stayed there for life. But now those businesses and fields are collapsing, and new fields are emerging very quickly. And so I think students today have to be prepared for adaptation, for innovation, um, for just being prepared to jump to the next step before the competition does. So being in a big city, like cities look like around the world, and as the world is moving towards, and being able um, to see lots of different fields and the connections between those fields, I think students will be better prepared to jump to the next level once those new careers that we can't even name today emerge. So I think that students ought to think more about preparation and adaptation more than a specific career path.
Well, I appreciate you talking about the pathways, and you're right. When I went to college as well, it was much more defined compared to today with the innovation and the technology that now we all get to experience. But I love how you talked about students needing to adapt, right? You talked about that adaptation, but also the innovation and being in a thriving city like LA. It definitely gives you that opportunity for multiple job opportunities, but you also mentioned the entertainment, whether it's sports, recreation, culture, and of course, who doesn't love a great taco, right? From a food truck. So we appreciate that, Kirk. And one of the things that I know that the students and their parents who are listening, they really want to hear about the overall application review. So let's talk a little bit about that at USC and begin by asking what are the different ways for a student to apply. For example, I'm talking about early decision, early action, regular decision, of course. And is there a benefit to applying one way over the other, not only for being admitted or being considered for merit based scholarships, but does this differ for in state and out of state students?
Lots of good questions all packed into one in there, and these are questions we get all the time. There are two application forms students can submit to be considered. One is the QuestBridge application. We are a QuestBridge school, so we'll consider students who apply through the QuestBridge process, and some students must also do a few extra forms for that. The Common App is the other way that students can be considered for admission, and that's what the overwhelming majority of candidates turn in. There's an early action plan and a regular decision plan. We don't do early decision. We're always talking about these things, so you never know. But right now we have early action and regular decision. The chances of getting in, I don't think differ, although students might parse through the data and find a percentage point difference here or there. But we aren't thinking as a team about preferring students who've applied early action versus regular decision or versus QuestBridge. We just want to know who they are, and we pick the best students that um, that we find. There is a benefit though to applying for the scholarship deadline. Students will be considered for our merit scholarships if they apply by the appropriate deadline, and that depends on the intended major. We have several schools that require a portfolio or an audition or a pre-screen video. We have schools of visual and performing arts. We have professional schools. We have a college of letters, arts, and sciences, 17 different schools, and six
Wow.
of those require a portfolio or audition, like dance, cinematic arts, art and design, um, architecture, music, dramatic arts. Maybe I forgot one in there. Um, it is hard to keep them all in my head. But so students who are applying to those are not they're not open in the early action process, and there are a couple of individual major programs that are also not open in early action. And so the students in that case, if they apply by the regular decision deadline, which is a bit earlier, oddly enough, will be considered for merit scholarships. But the majority of students who apply by the early action deadline will be considered for our merit scholarship program. So if students are concerned about cost and think they might be one of our top candidates, I would encourage them to apply for the early action program, if not to just get it done before Thanksgiving so they can enjoy a holiday with their family.
Absolutely. Definitely you wanna get it in before Thanksgiving to enjoy the holiday, but also to enjoy that once in a lifetime senior year, which is obviously so important. So, Kirk, what do you look for in a standout application, right? That's the question that a lot of parents and students wanna hear, and Are there any common mistakes students should avoid? In other words, what can they do to stand out positively in a very competitive application pool?
I wish students could see how competitive it is. And my big concern about this whole process is that our lack of space makes people feel bad. We don't have room for everybody, and we
Right.
wish we had more room. We meet lots of amazing students in this process and read lots of amazing stories, and we wish we could accommodate more. However, we just have a certain amount of space that we can handle. So, um, and the overwhelming majority of candidates who turn in applications to USC are outstanding. We
Right.
we received about 82,000 applications last year, and close to 50,000 of those students had an A minus average or higher. We made it
Wow.
admission offers to just over 8,000 students for the fall of 2024, right around a 10% rate for fall. So um, all of those candidates have something great to bring here. Every candidate I read has some strength that might make this place better. And that's what we're looking for is a population of students to bring their energy and their thoughts and their willingness to learn and willingness to push others in the classroom to make this effort even better. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that imagined, what we would imagine that impact in that in this community would be in the classroom, in the library, in the laboratory. I think one of the biggest mistakes is that students think about the application as a way to show how they are qualified, and they stop thinking about that potential impact. So many
Hmm.
applications sound like the laundry list of things that students imagine we require. And in fact, we don't say we require a certain number of hours or a certain number of activities. We want to know who you are and where you're going and where you've been and where you're going, and how we as a community can help you and you can help this community achieve our mutual goals. I think the biggest mistake is that too few students are thinking about that second part. What are the goals? What is the vision for the path that I'll be taking for the future? So I see many students tell us all of the things they have done and expect to be determined to be qualified when everybody seems qualified. Maybe not quite everybody, but darn near everybody is, and everybody brings some strength that is great. Um, but but it's easier for me to make a case for a candidate where I can imagine and easily see, really, in my own mind, what they will be bringing and how they will be making their mark here with us.
Well, that's a great answer. I got to repeat a couple of things. Number one, you talked about a mistake that a lot of students make is they talk a lot about their qualifications, right? And to your point, you talked about 82,000 applicants, 50,000 of whom have an A minus or higher, right? So, in terms of the number of students that are qualified academically, you have a lot, but you're also looking at the type of community member that they've been in high school, which will hopefully help to determine what they will do once they're on your campus. But what a lot of students neglect is, and you put it, they neglect to talk about the impact, right? The impact that they intend to have. Why do they see themselves at USC? What is it about your programs? What have they done in high school to prepare them for that rigor, for that awesome community that we call USC? And frankly, what's the impact? How are they going to contribute to this awesome thing that we call USC? So I just wanted to repeat that again because I think it's such an important point for students to understand. It's not just the test score, it's not just the GPA. You're really looking to build a community. Am I right, Kirk? Did I cover it correctly?
Yeah, I think that's right. As I hear you use the word impact, it sounds like a bigger word than I might be intending. Um, I think of a student's plan for what they might accomplish. I think about what kind of citizen they will be in the classroom, in the community, in the lab, in the library, or what kind of work they might hope to do, what kinds of problems they want to solve, what are the action items, I guess. helping me understand how a student sees that is impactful in ways they may
Right.
not see as impactful, but everybody here brings something to contribute.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that clarity. And again, you mentioned 82,000 applications, 50,000 with that A minus or higher. But I was curious in terms of your institutional priority, what is the number of freshmen that you're looking to bring in as that incoming class?
Typically, we look to enroll in the neighborhood of 3,400 students right about now at the first year level. We also accept a lot of transfer students, John. A lot of people are surprised that a private university like USC enrolls a lot of transfers. So we do
Hmm.
preserve another 1,400 or so spaces for transfer students who can come in after 1 or 2 years elsewhere. And we will enroll several hundred students to start in the spring semester as well, who applied for that first year admission, that fall admission at the either the first year or transfer level. So we have one application period for either fall or spring admission. Did that answer your question? The
It did. It did. I mean, and just to review, you get 82,000 applications overall. You're looking for a freshman class of approximately 3,400. And in addition to that, you're admitting about 1,400 transfer students. Am I right?
We're planning to enroll about 1,400 transfers and 3,400 first years.
Right.
Not everybody accepts our offer, so we
Right.
admit more than that. I think we offered about 2,200 transfers admission and about 8,050 or so first year candidates last year admission.
Understood. Yeah, and I mentioned the institutional priority because a lot of times a student will get rejected and they think it's something that they did. But a lot of times it comes to the fact that, as you put it earlier, there's a lack of space, right? You don't have a seat for every single qualified student that applies. Most of the students, by the way, that apply are qualified academically, right? And they all bring something. But again, you only have a limited number of seats. So we appreciate that. And I also know that USC is, in fact, test optional. Kirk, can you share the percentage of students that were admitted that did not submit standardized test scores?
Sure. One notion about priority though that comes to mind. I do have targets by school. I'm supposed to enroll a certain number in each of our 17 undergraduate departments or schools that have the departments. And we want that population to represent as many voices as possible. We want it to be geographically diverse, ethnically diverse, religiously diverse, politically diverse. So we have students from all over the world, and we actively look for them all over the world. Um, on the testing side, last year, and these numbers are on our website on the USC first year student profile page. Last year, of the applicants, 36% submitted scores, 64 did not submit scores, 64%. And of the ones admitted, just about half submitted scores. 51% submitted scores versus 49 that didn't. And of those who enrolled, 41% have scores, and the remaining 59 don't have scores. I think we talk more about scores outside of reading applications than we do while talking about applications. The scores help us. We do see value in using the number to help predict a student's first year GPA. That isn't the only thing we're trying to do. We're trying to ensure success. However, we're also trying to look at potential impact. So we're not only doing math to predict or validate our admission review process, but we're also looking into students' hearts for the kinds of things that I've talked about, their vision for their future and how we might work together to march towards that.
Well, we appreciate that. You're speaking from my view on two major things. You're looking at the academic portion of the overall application, but it's also very important students to show the type of community member that you're going to be. So, speaking about the academic portion, if you don't mind, Kirk, let's unpackage it just a little bit. The transcript is obviously a key component of it in terms of academic review. How does USC weigh course rigor versus the GPA in the admissions process? In other words, not all GPAs are created equally. So, can you share what you look for when reviewing a student's transcript?
Yeah, I think families or students often think this is a mathematical exercise, and
Hmm.
certainly calculating an average of grade points, a GPA, is arithmetic or mathematical. Um, However, we're looking more deeply at what the transcript tells us. We see the strengths and weaknesses, or I don't know if weaknesses is the right word, but opportunities perhaps, that and the subject areas that students are pursuing. We might see bumps that occurred along the way and wonder what happened in a student's life or how they might have bounced back from challenge. But overall, my thinking about this mirrors, I think, what students already understand in a different way. We My job really is to bring students that the faculty will want to teach. And
Hmm.
students know what that means. They know what their teachers want of them. I remember wanting to do what I wanted to do, not what
Hmm.
they wanted me to do. I wanted to do the minimum to keep a good grade, and they wanted me to do all of the reading and all of the extra work, and the extra credit or the extra side reading that was not required. So that I think is what's more important. We're trying to understand what kind of student they will be by looking at the total pattern, the trend, how students have challenged themselves or eased off of challenge or dug deeply and responded to pressure on that sense. And I think it is fair to say that yes, that students who challenge themselves are going to have a better chance of getting in. We as I've described have this luxury of choice where we can choose from so many outstanding candidates. And so the more strength that we can bring to the faculty in whatever way that is, not just courses, but real work, real thinking in whatever way students like to imagine that, is what we're looking for.
Well, we appreciate that. And I love how you said you want to bring students to your faculty that they will want to teach. So let's dig a little deeper in terms of the different portions of the application and maybe give a little insight in terms of what the students can do so that they hopefully improve their chances of being selected, obviously, in a very competitive application pool. So, what are some common pitfalls students should avoid, for example, when writing those personal statements, Kirk? And can you share examples of how a unique personal statement really resonated with you and perhaps elevated an application?
Yeah, it's a question I get a lot, and I don't think most college admission officers think in terms of pitfalls. We're thinking more positively how to bring students forward, not necessarily keep people out or cross them out. And we were all 17 in high school, and we know how hard that was. And we're we're empathetic to the challenges that life presents, and that I mean, gosh, the last 5 years have been especially challenging for a lot of us, and
Sure.
so we're thinking more about looking for strengths than trying to cross people out with pitfalls, although we are limited in capacity, so it does become a challenge as we get towards the end. I think the biggest um, I don't know, disappointment for me is when students try to impress in a way that hides who they are. I often read student writing, and it seems to want to use words that are trying to make me proud, I guess, of their vocabulary, but it doesn't feel real. And in the end, I'm starving to know who this real person is, and again, what they might bring. And so I feel disappointed that a student has felt fearful in sharing themselves. And I want students to know that I just want to know who they are and that they should make sure that it sounds like them. And if they're starting to use words that they think are, I hate to use the word fake, but that's the one that comes to mind,
Hmm.
or puffing themselves up, then that's probably a risky choice. I want to know, I want to see them and get to know them. So that I think is the thing that makes me wanting more. I won't use the word pitfall or um, something negative per se, but if I'm left with questions, then I don't. I feel a student might have missed an opportunity.
I appreciate that. I think What resonates with me in terms of what you're saying is that you're looking to get to know their authentic self, right? I don't think you do interviews because with 80,000 students applying, you probably don't have time to do 80,000 interviews, obviously. So that personal statement becomes part of the interview, and you want to get to know the authentic student. And to your point, not reading an essay with words that frankly don't sound too much like a 17-year-old. Am I right, Kirk?
That's exactly right. We used to interview as many students as we could, and you've done the math. We can't possibly interview even a fraction of the applicant pool. And part of the reason why we stopped doing that is because for large percentage of those interviews, we didn't really learn much more than we could already see. I think the students should know that we're working hard to ask questions that will help us see them, and we're trying to get to know them very well. So that ultimately is our hope, is to learn who they are and what are their hopes and dreams. And I hope that students are dreaming. I don't know if, as busy as we are, we're taking time to reflect and imagine and dream and take steps towards that dream.
Well, that's great. And, in terms of getting to know who they are, many schools like USC ask applicants to submit supplemental essays. So, Kirk, how many supplemental essays does USC require? And what are you looking for in the supplemental that is not so easily found in other parts of the overall application?
I have to acknowledge that it is, to me, it's just kind of weird that here we are asking students to tell us about themselves, and then we make them input it into a website that has little boxes and little lists and little check marks. That feels the least human way to do this. Yet it somehow works when we're done reading an application, and I personally will recite the name of the candidate aloud. This helps me hear that student's name and forget the story I read just moments before of the prior candidate. Um, I think students should think first about what their story should be, and what message they want to tell us about those questions that I've asked. Who are you? Where have you been? Where are you going? And how do we fit into your plan? Um, and then the carving up into the little boxes will kind of sort it out. Now we do have a fairly complex array of questions. We're a Common App school, and the Common App requires a main essay, and we ask some supplemental questions, and those questions will differ depending on the intended major. And this is one thing that students sometimes miss, because students can indicate their intended first choice or second choice major in the Common App. And as students dial in one major or another, the questions on our USC page will actually change because we have slightly different perspectives about the kinds of things we're looking for. So, an engineering student, for example, will get different questions than a philosophy, politics, and law student. On top of that is this artistic component in those programs that require a portfolio or an audition. So students will have to do the Common App and then do a separate set of things that the faculties of those schools in cinematic arts, dance, etc., will review independent or simultaneous to the admission application right by my office.
Well, we appreciate that. And I loved how you talk about the questions differ in the supplementals based on the intended major. But there is something that you said that really is a catch all in terms of what students should consider when working on those supplementals, which is write about who you are, where you're going, and how does USC in this case fit in terms of whatever your plan is? So I think that students, if you're able to articulate that, right, and demonstrate your understanding of USC and how it's in line with what you've done, who you are, where you see yourself going, and how USC will help you through that journey, I think it will help you at least with the supplemental portion of the application. Is that right, Kirk?
I think that'll help a student with all of their college applications. I think most colleges are asking basically the same things, which
Right.
is in those lines. And I really like the term you use, demonstrating understanding. It's the opposite of a term that I've come to really, I don't know, bristle at. There's this idea of demonstrated interest, where students seem to have been told that the more they appear to be interested in us, the more likely we are to take them. And maybe some schools do this, but we're seeing a rash of just inauthentic, unnecessary behavior and communication that seems to be geared towards getting names on a radar screen more than engaging authentically. So, demonstrating understanding, 100%, we love it. But demonstrating interest, we think students who've filled out an application are demonstrating interest.
Well, I appreciate that. Could you dig a little deeper in terms of what you were saying in terms of the demonstrating interest portion of this?
Well, it's a term that has somehow come to life in our industry, if you will,
Hmm.
and I don't quite understand it. I think it is widely believed that the more often a student opens an email from us, that we're likely to calculate some kind of index of likelihood to enroll, or the more times they visit our campus, the more phone calls they make, the more contact they make. I've even heard that there are companies that will open emails on behalf of students. I don't know if this is true. It sounds
I've heard that. I don't know if it's true, but I've heard the same,
so.
Kirk. I have. Yes.
And all of this is sad to me because we're just schools, we're just communities trying to build the next cohort of great students that will come in. We're not trying to play any games, but students, I think, are told that we are, and are told by folks that they trust, and and therefore start doing things that don't feel real to me. And I
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't hold a student responsible for that. I guess I hold our the whole process responsible for it. I don't quite know how to fix it, but somebody I know used this word demonstrating understanding, and I do think that's a good way to think about the application, because
Hmm.
that tells me a student is thinking about how we work with their plan. They're not just throwing names of colleges into the hopper because they want a particular kind of school. They just want a big name. But I'm more interested in what they plan to do here.
Right. Well, those are great insights, and you're very humble because USC is not just a school, right? With 82,000 students applying, so many students want to be a part of that, amazing community. And you're right. A lot of students think that just demonstrating your interest at a USC, meaning opening the emails, opening the links within the emails, visiting more than once, is going to help. But at a school like USC, they don't track you demonstrating your interest. However, doing things like that, for example, reading the emails, doing the virtual events, visiting campus, engaging with a rep if they come to your high school, that's important, as we've been saying, students, for you to demonstrate your interest. It'll help you to demonstrate your interest. If you know a lot about the school and what they offer, perhaps when you write the supplementals, you'll be better informed to come up with a better response because of your research. So do it to better yourself in terms of how you're going to respond perhaps in the supplemental. Do it to ensure that in fact the school is the right fit for you. But in the case of USC, you're not going to demonstrate interest and think that it's going to help you in the process because, as Kirk explained, it's not. So again, we appreciate that, Kirk. And another thing that's really important to students and their parents, obviously, is cost of attendance. College is extremely expensive. So what types of financial aid and scholarship opportunities are available at USC, and how can students best position themselves for those merit based awards?
I hope all parents are talking to their students about cost. School is expensive. Educating young people is an inefficient, slow,
Hmm.
and very personalized process, which is really exciting, but also can be very expensive. But absolutely worth it. Every study you read shows that higher education is worth the investment. We do offer financial aid. We're a private institution, and so we reserve a large portion of our revenues to go back to students in the form of financial aid. So students can get an estimate of what that aid might look like by going to our net price calculator. Every college that receives government funds has a net price calculator to help students understand before they apply what their actual price tag might look like based on our own institutional aid resources, come coordinated with, of course, the federal resources and the state of California resources that might be available for USC students. Um, so we have a need-based aid process that's very robust, and we enroll a lot of low-income students who think they can't afford a private school who are surprised after receiving their personalized price tag, which is another way to think about what financial aid is, um, and make it work. And we're very pleased about that. We also offer some merit scholarships for our very top candidates. We know that the best students in the country are being fought over by the best universities in the country and the world, and we want to engage in that battle for them. Students should know we are fighting over them. And merit scholarships is one tool for us to lower the cost and make it more attractive for our best candidates to choose us. So we do offer a merit scholarship program, and any first year applicant can be considered for those merit scholarships if they apply by the appropriate deadline, and that will vary by their intended major.
Well, we appreciate that, and especially the fact that you mentioned the net price calculator. Every college and university is supposed to have it. Usually, it's easily found on their websites, but just in case, you could always search net price calculator, USC, for example. So we appreciate that. And Kirk, this has been a phenomenal conversation. Before I get to the last question, I have to ask, are there any questions that I didn't ask that you wish I had, or any topics that simply didn't come up during this conversation that you'd like to leave with us now?
Oh, the one thing that comes to mind is that we're a city campus, but it's a beautiful traditional campus in the middle of a city. I think a lot of colleges in big cities don't look like us, and I hope that students can come and visit and see how beautiful and quiet and serene a campus in big, messy downtown Los Angeles can look like. I hope you enjoyed that when you came to visit. I mean, I'm
I
looking out.
certainly did.
Yeah, I'm looking outside and I see big, tall trees and grass and hedges and park and students walking in the sunshine in November. It is nice and warm here today. Although there is some rain coming this weekend. Um, and I wish that students could just feel the excitement of the campus when they get here. I remember
Right.
visiting this place when I was but 10 years old, and people loved it here, and that's why I came here, is because the energy is just coming out of everything, and I still feel that when I get off my train in the morning and walk to my building. It's there's a there's an energy that's contagious that motivates people to be their best and push each other and support each other, that I think is a great reason to come to USC and go to college in general. So if you can visit, by all means, come by. I'll point out the taco truck that I recommend.
Yeah, the taco trucks are great also. And I definitely felt that energy and that vibe, when I was able to visit, like I said, a few years back. The campus is absolutely beautiful. And of course, being in the great city of LA, there are so many opportunities, again, with the sports, the entertainment, internships, recreation. So you have it all there. And Kirk, this has been a phenomenal conversation. Unfortunately, it does bring us to that last question, which is, what are your top three pieces of advice that you would provide students and their parents getting ready for the college admissions process?
It's been a joy talking to you, John. I'm glad we,
Thank you, Kirk.
after 2 years, finally got a chance to get this on the calendar, and I hope we can do it again soon. Um,
Thank you, sir.
um, I have advice for students and for parents. For students, I think we're so worried sometimes about getting in or feeling judged or wondering what the future will hold for us, is that we forget that you are why we exist, students. You students will make us stronger, or whatever university you choose, better, because you will be a part of it. Any college, any college or university would be lucky to have you. You are what makes us great. Don't forget that you are the client, you are the customer, and you deserve to have your needs met and to be challenged at the level you're ready for to become the best that you can be. I think too often students are worried and forget that they're actually in control more than they're not. There is certainly a trade-off as after you submit the application, but you're choosing where to apply and you're choosing where to enroll, and we are fighting over you. So I hope students remember that their unique selves are what will make it is a valuable asset in this process. You will make us who we will become. My other advice is not to forget to dream. I've said that the application process is about telling us, where you're going and how we can help you get there. That means having some sense of where you're going. And I wonder if, hey, look, I'm an old man now. I'm in my late
Hmm.
50s, mid 50s. I'll go mid 50s, John.
That's pretty young,
Hey, you're
Kirk. That's
kind.
pretty young.
But our my experience was very different in that we didn't have so many things to do, so we imagined things to do, and we played, and we dreamt, and we worked with our friends to have fun, and we talked about what the future might hold in ways that I don't see happening as much now. I may be off of my radar, but I think students are accomplishing so much more than was ever possible because of all of the advances in communication and technology and ways that that's enhanced education. But I wonder if that dreaming part and that imagining a course of action part, if there's still room for that. So my hope is that students don't forget to leave time to envision, leave time to dream, leave time to um, wonder, and then think about the steps involved in getting to that point, which should, I think, become a part of that application essay. So if you take some time in the summer to dream and reflect and retreat and imagine and envision and then chart and take steps along, think about initial steps for that journey, I think your application will be much stronger because you've thought about those other two questions that so many students, I think, um, just haven't gotten to yet. And then finally, I've given some advice to parents already. I do think talking about money is an important part of this because nobody wants to do that,
Hmm.
and it can be a big thing for many families. So helping students understand what is possible, what is not possible, and assuring your students you will do anything you can, as you always have in your whole life, but also letting them know what you can't do, and that can be hard. Um, I can remember giving my daughters a number. We knew we could do some things, but we couldn't do everything. And a couple of colleges came in well over that number, and we just knew right away that wasn't going to be possible. And so that helped avoid some problems. But the real piece of advice for parents is just to remember to remind your students how proud you are of them and how much you love them. This process is hard on our kids, and you remember what adolescence means. Adolescence is about where we stand among our peers and how we feel judged or how we rate by others, and that is hard. It is adolescence is a word that we many of us find to be negative, and
Hmm.
that's when we apply to college. And for some reason, our whole world, for many students, focuses on where you're going to college. The only question they hear is, where do you plan to go to college? And they see the judgment and the dream and in the plan and the fear of what they might be or become based on the name. And I fear that many don't remember that they are why we exist and that we would be lucky to have them. And that they wonder if you're proud of them. They are doing
Hmm.
everything they can, parents, for you to be proud of them. Just remind them that you love them, that you're proud of them, and that you just want them to do their best. And if their effort is good and it's still not the level of achievement that you think they might be able to achieve, but if they're confident that it's their best, You can't ask for any more. Don't forget to tell them you love them, because a lot of the world is telling them they don't like them, or at least they didn't click like on the picture they posted, and they might worry about them.
Well, those were tremendous pieces of advice, and I think it's appropriate to just remind all parents out there: hug your kids, tell them you love them, and continue to support them throughout this process. Kirk, this was amazing. You're awesome. I'm so grateful that we finally got it, together, and I do hope to have you again. Thank you so much, sir. You're terrific.
Oh, thanks, John. You're very kind.
Well, so are you. And to everyone out there, good luck with the college search. Take care, all, and best wishes.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of The CAP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please don't forget to tell a friend and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and wherever you listen to your podcast. I am your host, John Durante, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The CAP.
Thank you for listening to the College Admissions Process Podcast presented by Prep Expert. Prep Expert offers live online SAT and ACT courses with the best score guarantees, instructors, and curriculum. Go to prepexpert.com to guarantee your child's success.